1510 KFNN. Good morning at 6:45. This is Business for Breakfast. Ken Morgan and Julie Doherty here.
I'm sorry, I'm busy in here selecting my Dutch Brothers coffee. Dow down 15 points right now, shortly after the open. NASDAQ down 8, S&P down 2.
Joining us now is Steve Moak, Republican candidate for District 3 in the congressional race. Good morning to you, sir.
Well, thanks for having me on, Ken. Julie, good to talk to you.
I understand you're a fan of both business and breakfast, so you're in the right place here this morning.
Absolutely.
Now, you say that probably your number one qualification for running is that you are not a politician. Explain that.
Well, I think it's two things. One, I'm not a politician. I've never run for office before, which I think is important. But I think the more important thing is that I bring business skills to this job better than anybody else in this race. I've been working in Arizona for over 23 years now, and I think if you look at the problems facing our nation, two of the biggest ones are business problems. This $1.5 trillion debt and the unemployment, those are business problems we need to solve, so we need more business people solving them.
Now, you've made a pledge to have a balanced budget if you are elected, but if you are elected, you would be one of many people in Congress. How would you accomplish that?
Well, I think you're right. One person can't run up the hill by themselves, but a skill that I bring from business is the ability to organize and get people focused on a couple specific goals. And we're going to have 40, 50, maybe 60 new Republican freshman congressmen. I've got the ability to get them organized and focused on balancing the budget, which we've got to do. I think that's a cancer or a debt that's going to crush us. And once I get those or help get those new people organized, we're going to have disproportionate influence over what happens in Congress this coming session, and I want to be part of that. I think I can play a key role in that.
Mr. Moak, there are lots of ways to balance the budget. You could borrow more, tax more, and cut more. What is your overall plan?
The government doesn't have a revenue problem. They've got a spending problem. I think it's 90% about cutting the spending. If you look back 10 years to the last time the federal government had a surplus or had a balanced budget, there's a couple things that jump out. One is we had half as many federal government employees as we do now. And the other thing that's more concerning is that the average pay right now for a federal employee to the same job being done in the private sector pays almost twice as much. That's just unacceptable. I don't believe federal employees should be paid less than what we make in the private sector, but they should not be paid twice what you and I would make for what we're doing in the private industry. And that's almost $100 billion if we bring that back in line over time.
Mr. Moak, this is Julie. Let me ask you the same questions I've been asking all of our candidates coming on here that want to balance the budget. Our deficit right now is over $1 trillion. Will you cut Social Security?
No, but I am in favor of raising the Social Security age.
Look, so that's a cut for people who are getting ready to retire. How about would you cut Medicare?
Well, let's talk about Social Security first,
okay,
because I think that's an important one. I think the people that are on Social Security now, we need to honor, we need to respect them, and we need to live up to our pledge. But for those of us that are not there yet or at some age, we need to identify the fact we're going to raise it up, let people know so they can begin to plan for that themselves. I think. And
what age would that be? My clients that are 55 or 60 or 40 or?
You mean in terms of what?
At what age would you say, okay, now you folks can't retire until you're 70?
Well, I think it is 70 is the right age. I think as to how far down to look is something where we could certainly talk about and negotiate to come up with something that's reasonable. And I think, go ahead.
I was going to say, and then they would also not be eligible for Medicare until later years?
Well, I think all those type of things have to be on the table. Part of what the problem that I think is happening is nobody's willing to address those difficult subjects and come up with a plan to solve it. We keep kicking the can down the road, and that's why we've got this $1.5 trillion deficit that's just going to kill us.
Would you raise the earnings cap on Social Security above $100,000 so that Bill Gates and I don't pay the same Social Security tax every year?
Well, I think as opposed to that, what I'm in favor of is means testing. And here's what I mean by that. If at a certain level you've got the income, we don't need it, then I think that's okay. But what we need to do is give us that credit in our estate, because it is our money. We paid into it, so you can't take that away from us. But if we don't need it right now, let me have that in my estate or in my so it's passed on to the next generation. So I think there are other ways to solve this problem without raising taxes.
Steve Moak is a Republican congressional candidate for District 3 to fill the seat vacated by John Shadegg, and we appreciate your coming on the show this morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Let me get you a quick check of the market. I was busy looking at my screen and asking that question. Stocks are slightly lower. Oil's down 24 cents at 75.98. Oh, come on, numbers, turn over here for me. Dow down